HDMI ports. I've never changed it. It's always just been this laptop. But,
You should be able to plug that HDMI port.
yeah, I make it unplug. Well, I don't know, because we've got it live streaming through that too.
Oh,
I'm not
That's
sure.
what my thought is.
I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, here, you want this, just put it on here and I'll
Do that or email it
stick
to
it
me.
over
Okay.
there.
Whichever.
Well,
There may be information you don't want. but-
it may be something I can just pull up the website on your computer.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Show you the rate dashboard if you have questions about how your rates compare
Yeah.
and things like that. It's
That's
kind of
fine.
just,
That works. Let's see.
That will be part of the, we're gonna do rates, well, we'll do a rate study as part of this as well. Looking at their impact development fees and things like that.
yeah.
Recording in progress.
I don't know if Tim can make it.
Okay. All right, then we're good.
Are you guys still, I know there's a few systems that I worked with on rates where they
Hey, was it raised-
firms had asked them to do a,
These are the same, aren't they?
Oh, yeah,
I
they
don't
give two
know
copies.
exactly
I
what
don't
they called it.
haven't seen this.
Yes.
Basically an ascending rate
Oh, did you?
I didn't know we could.
conservation,
Really? Yeah, but no.
get points for the grant.
Yes.
Is it a copy of that?
It will show if you need
Why?
financial stability.
Only had it 3 years.
I mean, to be financially stable when you need,
I don't think I've used it about twice.
I do think it gets you some points.
No, the rate structure itself, they specifically requested that the rate structure increase every 1,000 gallons in use.
Whoa. That's something I'd have to refer to our funding group.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to answer that today. I would say yes, that they would expect that, but I don't know if it's a requirement. Typically, that's what we see though. Don't you?
No, not always,
Really?
but usually.
So she should have a job by the end of the week. One way or the other.
Call it to order, Mr. Mayor.
Let's get Robbie in here.
Good idea. It is September the 13th, 5:15 in the afternoon, 2022. This is a Water Works workshop. We have all council members except Mr. Tim Jones in attendance.
Mr. Mayor, Tim has a work obligation and will join us if he can.
Good, very good. I've asked Mr. Rigsby if he would give us our invocation.
Sure, let us pray. Dear Lord, please continue to remember those that lost their lives on 9/11 and those that still miss loved ones today. Please give us the strength, wisdom, and courage to make the right decisions for this town and its citizens. Amen.
Amen. Okay, this asset inventory, is that you,
No,
Derek?
well, what I'd like to do, Tim is introduce Matt Casto from the North Carolina Rural Water Association. He's been working closely with Tim in the last 6 or 7 months since Tim's been on council. I've had a few phone conversations with him as well. It's my first time seeing Matt one-on-one. I think Jimmy's met with Matt, but wanted to introduce him to everybody and
Welcome.
and thank him for coming after hours, so to speak. But you know, just really wanted to bring him on board, and I'm not sure the conversations that you and Tim have had. Tim was kind enough to arrange the meeting, but you know, strategically looking ahead, Matt, we've got some ARPA money to use, and we just pray that we use it for the best use for our water system and our citizens. You know, councils, we've had discussions on how we can use it. One thing we've talked about is an extension of the water system, extension of, you know, new water lines, so to speak. Where those may go, you know, it's still somewhat debatable. I think we've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 likes. All the things we've discussed have their pluses and they have their minuses. So that's the purpose for us. About a month ago, we've started having these water workshops every other Tuesday. And so we just want to have open conversation. You know, obviously they're open to the public. We just want to have open conversation and discussion. You know, this is the only forum where we can discuss as a governing body together, you know, so we can decide to do what's best. You know, I would like to know what more, with the Rural Water Association, what they offer, what you do. I know you guys are so helpful us with Priscilla and staff and the annual reporting we have to do to the state, so that's very much appreciated. You know, maybe we can share some of the projects we have and share with your experience of working with other small towns, what struggles they go through.
Sure.
We're currently, Aaron with Hazen and Sawyer, he's, I guess, principal engineer with Hazen and Sawyer and has been working with the town for nearly 3 years now. And he's also working with the town specifically right now on a grant application to the Department of Water Infrastructure. So after you get done speaking, Aaron's going to be with us. He's in a unique position because he's also speaking as a citizen tonight and a vendor and partner with the town and our projects. So with that, you know, maybe a brief overview of the services you guys offer, and we can take it from there.
Sure. I've actually got a flyer here. I can hand some out to y'all if you want me to. Probably no use for each one of you to have one, I guess.
Thank you.
Don't leave the mayor out.
You didn't get one?
Here. You're fine.
I apologize. Yeah, so
Oh, and you may want to raise that mic up a little bit. There you go. That way, if anybody's listening, hear you.
Well, again, if y'all didn't catch it, my name is Matt Casto. I'm a circuit rider with the North Carolina Rural Water Association. And what a circuit rider is I provide on-site technical assistance for free to rural water systems that are under 10,000 in population. It's a USDA funded position. The reason the USDA funds that is because they have massive investment in infrastructure, rural infrastructure in particular, through the Rural Development Department of the USDA. I mean, I'm here to help support that investment in the infrastructure. Some of the things I do range from, like you said, I prepare the annual Consumer Confidence Report, the Water Quality Report for Stokesdale for the last 2 years. The local water supply plan, I put that together with the help of the town staff, Priscilla, and
Miss Martin and then Robbie now.
Yeah,
We've
yep.
had some turnover.
yeah, I hadn't quite worked much with Robbie yet, but I will be.
Yeah,
I've
sharp as a
already
tiger.
warned him I'll be back on the first of the year to bug him for some billing data, and that's the hardest part always
Yeah.
is usually getting the
Pulling it
billing
together.
data out of the software. But I'll have to compliment you guys because you're always one of the easiest systems to work with.
Good.
Everything you have is always, the numbers are accurate, they're easy to get to. You guys' reporting and billing and recording has just always been one of the best that I work with.
Well, we've got a small staff, but they do a great job, that's for sure.
That's for
Absolutely,
sure.
they do. Yeah, so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Some of the other things I do out in the field, I do leak detection. So if you have water loss that's unexplained, we can do system-wide leak surveys. If you have a leak where water is surfacing, where you know you've lost pressure, but you can't exactly quite pinpoint the leak, I have equipment that can help do that. I do compliance help, like if you have a violation or a treatment issue, I can help you work through sorting out that that compliance issue, whether it be changing the way that you operate the system to be more effective or working through the public notice process with that. We do some financial rate study type of work. Yeah, and that's about it. Just pretty much anything else that you might have questions about. I like to think that I kind of bridge the gap between the engineering firm, Aaron and
Yeah.
Raising Sawyer, and your operator and the town staff. I kind of fill in those gaps.
So one of Tim's many strengths is the mechanics of a water system. And he's not an engineer, but he just knows stuff. I wish I was mechanically inclined like Tim. But I'm going to dive. My question's going to be, and I'll probably come back to more of the boots on the ground, nuts and bolts type thing. But strategically looking in this ARPA money that the town has, and I mentioned earlier, running additional water lines. So one option that the town is exploring to run a water line, we buy all our water from Winston-Salem now. One option we have is to potentially is to tie into Rockingham County as a secondary dual source. That's more as a purpose, as a contingency in the event of we're unable to get water to Stokesdale to the Forsyth County line in the short term due to an outage. But it's strategic. But they're also a different river basin. The gallons we're looking at buying from them per day would be just minimal. I mean, we're talking 10, 20,000 gallons. Whereas I know Reedsville sells Greensboro about 1 million a day. So, I mean, so I know it's possible for systems like, you have the Greensboro system and they're buying from Reedsville. So they're mixing water, and we're going to rely heavily on our engineers too. But in your experience, do any of your other small towns, are they structured in such a manner?
It's a mix. Just depends on
Yeah.
geographically where those other sources of water are located, whether it's, financially feasible to build another interconnection with two. So, yeah, there's plenty of systems that have two, and there's plenty of systems that only have one source. I would advise, if available, to have a secondary source, just to have
Right.
increased resiliency. Because while it's unlikely that Winston-Salem goes down, it's not unheard of.
Sure.
Jackson, Mississippi's water
Right.
plant is down right now. The EPA is there. It's a federal disaster. If Winston-Salem was Jackson, Mississippi, and they were down, Stokesdale would be down too.
Right.
If you had another interconnect with Reedsville or Madison, Rockingham County, whichever side you would tie into, you'd be able to bring water in and still be in business.
So as a layman, I gravitate towards the Madison side of Rockingham County, one, because the line's only roughly a mile away, so, cost. But they treat their water with free chlorine as opposed to where Reedsville's with chloramine.
Right.
So I tend to want to stay far away from chloramine for that reason. But say 10 years down the road, the Madison system switched to chloramine, and then all of a sudden we're buying from Winston and call it Madison. It's Rockingham County, but let's just call it Madison. And then you're in a situation where we're mixing chlorine, free chlorine, and chloramine.
Right.
What
You
do we
can
do?
do
What
that.
do we do?
It comes with challenges, but you
Yeah.
can blend the two. It's been done. It happens all the time. Being that would be an emergency interconnect, you wouldn't be blending them all the time, and you could be permitted to do so.
Right, and today, like I say, today they're free chlorine. So if we were to go that route today, one of the lures to that route, besides geography, is that they also treat their water with free chlorine.
Yeah.
And Aaron, listen to anything we're saying, and please chime in. I believe we're on the clock, and you're a Stokesdale citizen, so you have skin in the game as a customer. So we value both of your knowledge. It's extremely important. So there's that. And then we haven't even bid off if the Madison side of Rockingham County, do they have the capacity? There's growth like crazy going on the other side of that county line. Do they have the capacity? Will they have the capacity in 10 years? Do they even know if they have the capacity? What kind of studies have been done? So there has just been very, very preliminary talks between the town of Stokesdale and Rockingham County. And we've got some warming up. We've got to warm them up to the idea.
Yeah.
Another option that the town has would be this, the source would still be Forsyth County, but it would be going down Hall River Road, the southern end of Stokesdale, going through Oak Ridge, and then going about 1.5 miles through Kernersville, or maybe it's unincorporated Forsyth County until we connect. There, we're looking at about 5.5 miles. Roughly half of that within the Oak Ridge jurisdiction. You know, without getting into the complexities there, let's just look at it from a sheer cost standpoint. And, you know, if it's $1 million a mile, you know, that's $5.5 million compared to, you know, Rockingham County, which might be $1 million, $1.5 million, I don't know. So, but that, you know, that is, that's the same source. And that doesn't necessarily make me nervous because it comes from a different elevated tank, a different zone within the water system per se. But our challenge right now, and the reason we're really, the reason I think council is at least very open-minded to having a second source is because we only have one trunk line from, call it the center of Walkertown, there at the Sheets and Lowe's, to go approximately, I don't know, 8 to 10 miles right over the lake at Blues Creek until the town of Stokesdale. And then we only have that one trunk line for another 4-ish miles or so into the core of Stokesdale. And from there, it kind of branches out, right? But, you know, as one council member, my biggest concern would be on that 4 miles once you cross the lake into the core of Stokesdale, should there be some kind of water line failure. So that's 4 miles of exposure. Now, we have an emergency plan in place and all that, but we're not a huge utility like a Winston-Salem, Forsyth County that has people on call, their people on call to get out and fix a line within a matter of, you know, 8 hours. You know, we're not that quick. So our exposure by that one line concerns me, and also the capacity of water. That it doesn't concern me today. Quite frankly, it doesn't concern me 10 years from now. But if we're looking, you know, if we are looking down the road, I don't know when that one pipe, and Aaron's helping us out on that as well. But these are reasons for looking for that. I want to get away from the terminology of secondary source, but just a dual inlet of water, or trunk line of water into the town of Stokesdale.
Right.
So.
Yeah, a secondary line from Winston-Salem would be better than nothing. It's gonna be up to y'all to evaluate the
Right.
cost benefit of that.
Well,
But purely from a resiliency standpoint,
there,
would be better to have.
there's certainly
Line
complexities to
breaks
both.
happen.
I mean,
But it would not be a secondary source. It would, if Winston goes
redundant.
down, we're down.
Right. Be a redundant
'Cause
interconnection.
I keep hearing secondary source out of Winston-Salem, and Aaron might be able to answer this question. Do they have 2 treatment plants? Is there a different treatment plant for Kernersville than the line that's coming out to us from Walkertown? Or is it the same treatment plant?
Well, so, 2 different questions. So they have 3 treatment plants in Winston-Salem. So the chances of them going completely down and dry are very, very slim, right? And so they built that resiliency into their system through the amount of capacity they've needed over the years and the redundancy that they've desired inside their system. So them going down completely is pretty slim. Those 3 plants combine water into the distribution system. So if they were to lose one, then the other 2 would pick up the slack. May not be able to provide the same pressures, may not be able to provide the same flows on a max day, but in any given day would likely be able to fill that gap for a short period of time, right? And I don't have their data on me to be able to answer those questions in detail, but what I can say with no uncertainty is that them losing complete water to be able to feed you from those 2 sources is pretty slim. It does come out of 2 different portions of their distribution system, so I think that's the key part. You're really pulling for more tanks and piping coming from Kernersville as opposed to the current condition where you're pulling from Walkertown. So in the event of a secondary source, I think it does, to the town of Stokesdale, it does help. What we looked at in the original master plan were a few options. It was pulling a parallel water line out of Walkertown all the way from essentially Blues Creek Road up at 158, up near Walkertown, all the way down across the lake, all the way to the meter, right? And so that is what. Sorry.
You were asked to look at a parallel line outside of the town limits of Stokesdale, all the way up to,
It's in the report.
For the secondary source, Mr. Landis, right, it did, so we gave, I think there were 4 different alternatives. That
Yeah.
was one of them, was to pull in from that area. The second viable alternative was to pull in on Hall River Road. What that gave you, the secondary line coming down 158 was minimal improvement to flow and pressure amongst the system, right? I mean, it gave you a bit more capacity with 2 lines versus 1. Coming in off of Hall River Road and pulling in from a different area of the distribution system and some main lines that run through Kernersville gave you quite a bit of flow supplement and pressure. So again, it's something that, we are happy to look at for Rockingham County. That wasn't on the table at the time we did the master plan, so it's not something we even considered. I think there are some questions that council should consider, should Rockingham County come on the table. One being, what is the water age and water quality at the point that you would connect, right? I mean, so with the water that you're pulling in, is it already at the extremities at the point that, you would have difficulties pulling that into your system and then it's sitting here, right? So not saying it's bad, I have no idea what it is, but it's just something that you should consider as an option. You should also consider options such as interbasin transfers, coming from the Roanoke Basin versus what's coming from from the Yadkin River, and whether that's going to be a concern for their system, so that they will have limits in what they can transfer to you. I don't know what those are. I don't know if they currently sell to anybody else that would take away from some of those limits. Maybe you have an idea of what Rockingham County currently does.
I've not seen their IBT certification, so I don't know.
So, and there are emergency interconnection variances. There are, if you've got flow on the low side, that can get around some of those IBT requirements, but, those are all things that would need to be looked at. You mentioned mixing free chlorine and chloramine systems is something that absolutely can be done. The reason we would recommend against it is if you're going to use it as a permanent supply and not just like, okay, we've lost we've lost water from Winston, we need to open a valve somewhere and get more water here. That would be an emergency connection. It would be a hand valve. You go over there, you turn it on, right? Or you could set it up as in a PRV situation or whatever it may be. But if it were always going to be open and always going to be supplying a portion of Stokesdale and it were a different disinfection, we would suggest, that you would have a breakpoint chlorination system at that point, right? Where you would over-chlorinate it there and.
You'd need a full-time operator for something like that.
That's what I was, getting to, is that it would require a full-time operator. So, for a system like Stokesdale, I don't know that you would, to bring in chloramine system into Stokesdale, it would require another staff member essentially.
Right.
That would look after that. And that is a requirement by the state. That's not a requirement of the system. The state says if you're going to have this system in place, you have to have is it a Class A or? I'm not sure.
Well, it's already
certain
a
class
distribution
okay.
system, but I think it would increase the site visits to daily.
So it's something to
Well, so,
consider. But currently, they are free
that's good to
chlorine,
know.
so-
And just to be clear for the public record, since this is a public meeting, I would not endorse tying in to a system that treats with chloramine. It's the down the road.
Right.
If something changed, I remember reading in the paper, I think maybe it was Greensboro that changed recent, or maybe a few years back from free chlorine to chloramine. Does that sound right?
That was 2011.
2011,
I was a-
so more than
I
a
was
few years
operating
back.
that plant when that happened.
Okay, so, so
Like you.
that's nothing I want to sign the town up for. It's just,
Winston-Salem will probably go to chloramines at some point. I'm kind of surprised they haven't already, to be honest.
I mean,
What's the
I don't know.
advantage?
I don't know.
well, I guess that could work.
Disinfection byproduct formation, or the lack of with chloramines.
And I don't know whether. they
Easier to
have-
clean up.
It's just with big systems that have water going out in every direction and lots of water age, when you chloraminate, the chlorine, for lack of a better term, it just stays together longer and limits the formation of those undesirable disinfection byproducts. So, you guys are already kind of borderline with your THM, HAA disinfection byproduct formation now. So I'm, Winston-Salem is just, they're right there where they almost need to go to chloramines already.
Having said that, they've had
For-
they've had a really good year. I mean, you guys have been great at your interconnections and.
But you guys had,
So-
they just had last quarter, there was a single exceedance for THMs here.
And that's, my understanding is that's normal for August.
Yeah, that's why
And-
they've structured the rule the way they have. The compliance is based on a location running annual average. So they take the 4 quarters, and average them together essentially. It's a little more complicated than that, but they average them together so August doesn't make you get a violation.
Yeah,
But you get a single exceedance
and,
if you go over in August. So it's not a system-wide public notice that you have to do. It's just a single exceedance just at the location that it was collected.
I don't know what that means.
The point being that you're already borderline. I mean, yeah, a lot of systems go over in August, but you don't want to even go over once. I mean, they wrote the rule that way to accommodate systems that go over in August, but it's not ideal to go over at all.
So for these same reasons are the reasons we recommended the control valve to make sure that your tank is turning over, so to maintain some fresh water quality. If you look at the report we put together, the secondary connection from Winston dramatically decreases your water age in the system. And-
The 15 to
that
20.
That's the huge benefit. Well, that's the range, but just the water age overall in the system. Water age is an indication of water quality, and we use that as an indication of water quality. It's not necessarily the only measure, but it's the way that we can model it. And so, literally, how old is the water? And if you're not turning over the tank, the water in the tank can get pretty old.
Let me ask you this. I think I read where the average age of water at the booster station there's 6 days coming in from Winston-Salem. So we boosted with chlorine. Does that in itself, chlorine reduce THMs or? Yeah. I didn't think so either.
No, but, so the reason for that is oftentimes at the extremities of the system as chlorine ages, right? I mean, you're gonna have some chlorine drop out, and so you need to make sure you have a minimum chlorine concentration that you need for disinfection to remain in the system. The more chlorine you add, in elementary, you can probably explain it better, in elementary, understanding that the more chlorine you add, the more issues you could potentially have with THMs, disinfection byproducts.
The more chlorine you have, the more THM problems?
Doesn't mean you can't go without chlorine. You gotta have the booster station, right?
You gotta
so
walk the line.
You gotta have it, but you don't wanna over-chlorinate either, because it can cause you problems. The more is better moniker is not, not necessarily right in this case. So let me say that, because I don't want council walking away to think that we're against the Rockingham County option, and because we aren't. As an engineer, we want to find the best solution for the council. It's just an option we haven't looked at, so.
Right, absolutely. No,
Just, you know, it could absolutely be the right answer for the town, but we just don't know.
Aaron, do we have anything that has looked at bringing the water into Stokesdale from 65, from out at, there are hydrants from Winston-Salem that come past the Blues Creek post office there. Has anyone looked at doing that?
So that's a great question. So it's actually in a meeting, was posed that question. I went back and looked at some maps, and all of that system is fed coming up from essentially Blues Creek Road. And so in that case, it's fed from the same
I understand.
Same trunk line.
I understand.
line that you would be fed from now. So I would say, no, that doesn't solve
But it connects further west of where we're connected.
It does. That has not been modeled. My gut tells me that it is, the lines going up into those areas, going up into the Wanaco, Rural Hall, Dermanton areas are all smaller in size, instead of having the transmission mains that are heading out through Walkertown. So you wouldn't be able to get as much water through those systems.
You're saying coming down Blues Creek Road, it's a smaller line?
Feeding into those areas of the Winston-Salem Forsyth
Okay.
County system. All right, so I think, I don't know anything about the Rockingham system. I don't know the size of the pipes coming toward you that you're considering tying into.
They're mostly 16s.
Okay, I mean, that would
And
be great.
the water age is an issue out there.
Okay. So,
But as all
something to
these,
consider.
as all this development continues to go in, it'll just continue to get better.
Sure. A build it and they will come type thing.
Yeah, they kind of, they put that water system in over there, looking ahead 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
So there may be options to get around that, right? I mean, flushing is one of them, right? I mean, all of those things is something that we could take a look at. Again, it's just not a box that we've checked.
Sure. Definitely. You guys got anything? I can keep going.
I'm still trying to figure out how bringing a second line in from Hall River Road it decreases the age of water. I mean, it sounds like you got two hoses going into a bucket,
From the same source.
from the same source.
I'm glad
I'm
you
not an
asked.
engineer, so I'm not even-
I'm glad you asked, because it decreases water age dramatically when you have a control valve at both locations that allows the system that allows the tank to fill up, empty appropriately, and cycle appropriately.
So it's the control valves that are actually causing what if we did control valves of what we got now to empty the tank and fill it back?
So
Would we?
that is absolutely a recommendation that we've made and would like to see you do.
We get the same results as having another line. The control valves is the key, is what you're saying.
Not quite the same, but you'd get, so what would happen is a lot of your water age concerns are in the southern portion of your system right now. And so if you bring a water line in from the south and feeding it, from Hall River Road into 68, a lot of that water would go directly there without going to the tank first. right?
Do they have an age problem at all? That would be on the end of that line. Do they have any age issues there? If they have that, we would be getting age water there.
We looked at that at the time we did the report. I don't have that information.
Right.
But it's something I could go back to the report.
You got the floor, Mr. Foy.
Well, there's complexities with both options, and just need to continue to drive down on that and make the best decision.
Can I just, for the record, have we reached out officially to the Rockingham County municipalities to see if they're willing to sell us water? I mean, we seem like we're doing a lot of what ifs. Have we actually confirmed that they're willing to sell us water and the amount they're willing to sell it at?
I talked to a county commissioner for about 3 minutes in church on Sunday, but
That should cover it.
First of the year, Mr. Jones and I made a visit to the county commissioners, and we spoke with several of the officials. They want to push us to Reidsville. They want us to have the chloramine source. They're really not interested in letting us connect to the Madison Mandan.
So, I mean, it looks to me like, before we continue to ponder these ideas with, that maybe we need to get a confirmation up there, what our possibilities and our options are before we continue to invest time and money into wondering.
yeah.
Well, that's the first time I've heard that. that they weren't interested.
Not in Madison Mayodan connection. They're interested in letting us go. What they want us to do is they want us to put a water main underneath 220. That's what they're after.
Right.
That would feed us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a no on that for at least 16 more months, so.
What's the capacity of the pipe that we've got coming from Winston now? And how much capacity could we get out? I realize that they're using that. So, I mean, if they continue to, use the line that we put in, we give them, of course, that's gonna take the capacity down.
They do, I mean, that could certainly, affect you. Contractually, they're required to be able to give you 300,000, right, when you need it. It's a question as far as like, what's the max that you can get at any point, any given point? We have a number that's related to fire flow, but that's not necessarily a good representation of what you can get on every given day. It's a number that we would need to model and will likely do during this process, but it's a question that I've received a few times, so I'll try to answer it before then, but I don't have it with me today. But the fire flow number is fairly large, you know, to the point where I think you'd have so many head losses coming through that pipe, I'm not even sure you could get to it, but the model would suggest that you can get quite a bit through there.
Now, our system wasn't designed for fire flow, was it? Wasn't it just designed for potable water?
Yeah, let me be clear. So when we designed for what is the fire flow available at that point, at that given point, which would be the interconnection where your meter is, we're looking at the flow that we can get out of that system on the max day and never take a point in the system below 20 PSI, right? Which is what the state requirement would be for, does that make sense? And so and that number is fairly large there, but again, I don't think that is not a good representation of what you would get on an average day here in Stokesdale and the max number, you know, what that, you know, GPM might be that you could potentially get out of that system under contract to the city of Winston.
So said another way, what if Stokesdale's average use day, instead of 130, was 500,000 gallons a day? Could that line still support 500,000 gallons a day on average usage plus a peak fire flow situation? You know, you mentioned head loss and all the things.
That is,
and I know you need to do the model.
That is what we will confirm. I think likely, but that is what we need to confirm.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
What size is the line?
It's an 8-inch. Well, it's a 12-inch line to the interconnection, 8-inch line from there to Stokesdale.
Okay.
So
We had talked in meetings before, and I think we actually, I'm not sure if we actually made a vote or not, but we were supposed to be getting information from Winston-Salem to, about extending our allotment of water. Do you know if Winston-Salem is actually willing to extend that 300,000? Now, I've seen articles before that said Winston didn't have enough water to, or wouldn't, in the future, wouldn't have enough water to furnish northwest Guilford County.
I cannot speak to your last point at all.
Right.
And I have not had conversation, well, I guess I can't speak to either point at all. I have not had a conversation that asked them if they would be willing to send more water to Stokesdale. That is certainly not something we've broached with them. I do think that there were conversations under the previous mayor about potentially extending that or whether there would be interest in it. I don't know where they went, and I don't know if there were.
Sure.
We actually voted to do two projects. Well, not, that was actually letting the developers do the two projects in Forsyth County. And the last one we did, that was one of the big sticking issues.
Correct.
Well, I guess we should have gotten somewhere with that before now, but it's not gonna be any use to run any more pipes as far as from Winston-Salem if we can't get any more water. I mean, that's a, you know, talking about, water, I mean, that's an issue that we need to do. I mean, run a line down Hall River Road, and you can't get to 300,000 gallons, I mean, you know.
Math don't work, does
I
it?
mean, you know, we're talking about more money running that line to cover a quarter mile of Stokesdale than our whole water system costs. So, not, you know,
Well, if
We
by
might
chan-
need
if-
to-
if
we
by
might
chance
need
we
to
go down Hall
we might
River
need to
Road,
find out if we
Stokesdale
actually
might-
can get any more water and get under contract before we, I mean, you know,
I don't see how it'd be possible to go down River Road without some kind of cost participation between somebody else, whether it be,
well, I know.
For South
I'm not
County or-
advocating to go down Hall River Road by no means, you know that. But,
I understand, but
I'm just saying, whatever we do, if we're talking about extending the system as far as capacity, we need to know that we can get more water.
I
I
think
mean, we can run lines and use what we got now and run lines through Stokesdale, what we got, and we can upgrade our system, for the upgrades and things that we need to do. But, as far as working on increased capacity, if we don't have somebody to give us water or sell us water, there's no reason to do it.
I'll go out on a limb and say Winston-Salem can and will sell you more water.
I think
I'll be the bad guy. I mean,
No, that's not a bad guy. I mean, I just, you know,
their water plants can do almost 100 million gallons a day.
wow.
And 300,000 to 500,000, they won't even notice.
I would agree with it, but I just can't speak for the city. Did we not,
Jessica talked to
did we not task, I'm not sure, did we do that as a vote of council?
There
or
was
is that
some
just conversation? I
There was
cannot
some
remember.
discussions, but the main discussion on that was forcing them to put it in writing, and I think that was the reluctancy of the previous administration. He kind of felt that their word was good enough, and we've been operating on their word for a long time. And I think some of us kind of wanted a little bit more concrete, something in writing, and I think that's where the contention
Well,
was.
it's in writing that we get water till 2030. That was one of the hangups too.
Right.
We were under contract to 2030, and I guess I need to go back and hunt some minutes or actually some tapes. And see, I thought we did a task to do that, and I mean, if we did, we just need to do it again. Task somebody with contacting Winston-Salem and getting their contract to where it's not 2030, which I don't think we're gonna have any problem with that. But we was assured, if you remember, in the meetings that wasn't a problem, so.
yes.
I don't know if this helps you at all, but I have in my hand it's a draft of an amendment to extend our contract.
Right.
It dates back to 2019, 2021.
This is 2022.
I understand that, but the legwork has been done, is from what I understand. I haven't read through this thoroughly, but it does exist.
Who drafted it?
Your former mayor and Courtney Driver, I believe.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I just wondered who did it, and, I mean, what, you
But
know.
my concern is, why don't you know about this? Why don't y'all know about this?
I don't know, maybe y'all got a secret file somewhere you.
Ain't no secret file I got.
Where'd you get it?
I was told it existed, and Dale was fortunate enough to pull it up for me.
Well, that's what we were just talking about. That we had set that task up in a council meeting. I guess you fellas not remember?
Yeah, I remember, and we'll just need to, I'm looking for the minutes, because I think we voted on it, but that's,
I thought we did. Whether, you know,
yeah, it's either here or there for right now.
I've got, if you need a date, I got October 1, 2018.
Well,
Doesn't mean anything.
I don't guess it matters if it was voted on or not. It just needs to do it, so we'll know, you know, where we stand.
So I think the summation of this is, A, we need to reach out, somebody needs to reach out to Forsyth and Winston, and get the, whatever contract we want cemented as far as the commitment to sell us more water. And B, somebody needs to reach out to Rockingham officially and figure out what our options are up there. So we'll kind of know where we're at, because
Unless things have changed, I'm confident that Tim and I were able to figure out where we stand with Rockingham County. I mean, I'm not closing the door to further negotiations, but it was pretty clear to us.
When did that meeting take place?
It was either January or February this year. It was right after I took office.
So if we only have the option of buying from Reidsville, so where does that line come in at?
Right there at 220. It's just east of 220 on 158.
Yeah, it's miles past 220. I mean, it's a good,
Not a short distance.
yeah.
No, but understanding would be that they'd run it to 220, we'd have to run it from 220 into town. That was the general conversation
Rockingham County would run it to 220?
from their side.
Really?
I don't know. I'm not interested in participating in any costs that'll make that intersection look like Wendover Avenue.
No. It's gonna be bad enough soon enough.
Well, not really either. So you're saying that the Madison end of it is out?
They were not at all excited about adding us on to that source. Not at all. And it is the shortest route to another source.
Well, it definitely is.
I don't think it's out.
Well, it may not be, but that's why I say, I don't want to close the door to negotiations on it. It is worth pursuing.
It's
Matt,
definitely worth pursuing.
Matt, Tim called me today, and he said that he'd had a list, you and him had, went over, is that correct?
What now?
He said some type of a list of, things that you had.
A list.
It maybe I'm confused. I thought he said that y'all went over a few things that you might be, able to go over in the meeting. I don't know, maybe he didn't.
Yeah, I've put together a few things if you want. It's kind of unrelated to the current conversation. It's just general system overview
Yeah.
things.
Oh, no, that's good. Hey, we want it all.
I did not realize that Aaron here had put together all this, so.
Anything, I mean, we're throwing it on the wall here, so.
Yeah, okay, all right. Did we figure out a way to hook my computer up?
I don't know. Let's see. My only concern is, I know that streaming is going through this laptop, and I'm afraid, I don't know which one of these HDMIs actually goes to the projector. I've never unhooked it since I've been here. I'm not sure.
Well,
Can we do the thumb drive thing?
You can try that if you want to, or
Okay.
email it, whichever you prefer. We can try that. I can go grab you another thumb drive. Will that work?
Emailing it might be faster.
That works? You can email it to me.
All right. What's your email?
It is, let's see, I guess send it to Dale's because that's what's hooked up to this computer. It's Stokesdale@stokesdale.org.
Mr. Mayor, we might just have to have a well digging party.
Mr. Jones and I discussed that.
Yeah,
Get outside the contaminated area. He seems to think he knows where the water is.
yeah. I don't know how the good folks at Stokesdale would like to have the water sold out from under their property back to them. I know I wouldn't like it. But things are changing.
Good deal.
All right.
Oh, did you get it?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
oh, nice.
I just put together a few quick talking points that Tim asked me to.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it. So this is where I would have introduced myself and all that, but we've already gotten into that.
Yeah.
so.
That's fine. So go ahead and skip. Very good.
All right, so I went over you guys' compliance sampling schedule, just sort of put it together in a real quick, easy to understand way, just to inform you guys of what kind of goes into the daily operations of maintaining a water system. So monthly, you have to do chlorine residuals and bacteriological samples. That's just to ensure that adequate disinfection is happening. Quarterly, the DBPs like we talked about already. And that's calculated on a running annual average, and that's why you don't get a violation for going over in August. Every 3 years, you have to do lead and copper sampling, and that's at your consumer's taps. Your system does 10, I believe, inside of their house, and usually it's based on a location tier structure. They like you to sample at locations that are most likely to have lead service lines or lead solder in their house. They've completely overhauled that rule, so we're getting ready to have a big uproar in public water. In October 2024, you're gonna have to submit an inventory of your entire system, telling the EPA and the state what percentage of your system consists of lead service lines, galvanized, anything else, and unknown. Yes, sir.
When you say our system, you talking about what the infrastructure, our assets that we own?
Your side and the customer's side.
How far with the customer side? All the way to the tap? Or,
Ideally, but we're still trying to unravel all this. The guidance just came down to the state level from the EPA like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, right, Aaron? It was about 3 weeks ago, and it's like a 176-page document, and so the technical assistance providers and the engineering firms we're still unpackaging all this, but I think you're going to be able to get away with just exposing a little bit of service line on the other side of the meter, or if you have really good construction records, you won't have to do that at all. Stokesdale's system has not been in all that long. I don't think this is going to be as big of an issue for you as it will be for a lot of the older systems. You should have accurate enough construction records and building permitting records that you might not have to even put a shovel in the ground.
It's the private side.
The private side is going to consist of sending out postcards asking the citizens to identify what plumbing materials were put in on their side of the meter. Ideally, you get good buy-in with that and you get some good information and you're able to move on. But the EPA is going to want you to submit by October 2024 some form of an inventory.
What are the consequences if you don't comply?
Oh, Lord.
Exactly.
Four-page document.
Yeah,
They'll find you.
let's eliminate that as an option.
I'll tell you right
But let
now,
me ask you this.
You don't
with
want to
that-
mess
with
with the EPA, the federal EPA, when it comes to lead and copper.
Oh, I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that, but I can just
Let
see
me ask
some,
you a question, though.
Robbie just drafted his resignation.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I've got quite a while before I can retire, so does Robbie, and a lot of the systems that I'm working with that are older and they know they've got lead lines, but they don't have any records, and the guys are even close to retirement at all, they're like, I'm gonna retire, y'all deal with it. Me and Robbie will look at each other and go, all right,
I know some of
let's
them-
get to work.
Whenever I spoke with Gene yesterday, he gave me a quick rundown of just how the water works from the meter. And he did say that some of the meter, or the connectors, I don't know, it looks like it's two U's, or it looks like a U, where it comes together.
Meter
These-
center.
Yes, yeah, there's these lead little bushelings right there at the connectors, and those are no longer allowed. So that's something that they changed. And then there was something else, I think it's brass, and now it has to be stainless. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's changed. He said since he's been putting it in here, that's continuing to change.
So after that inventory is submitted, the EPA is gonna establish basically a find and replace schedule for where you're get all the lead out of the system.
Gotcha.
I think I heard 7% a year. Does that sound familiar?
You have a replacement schedule,
Yeah.
and I can't remember if it's
Yeah.
7 or 10.
It's not gonna be such a big a deal for you guys, cause the system was built like in the 90s, right?
So they'll.
Even early
the-
2000s.
The thought is that they'll put grant systems in place to be able to fund, hopefully, to be able to fund the private replacements as well. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that won't be able to change their water plumbing inside their home, right? I mean, they won't be able to afford that.
That's my concern, is the individual. I mean, if you've got some of these, I have no idea how old some of the residences are that we are connected to now, that were, you know, on a well at one time. But those are the ones that concern me the most.
You're exactly right.
I don't think that the town is gonna be obligated to fund replacing any of the customer's plumbing. There'll just be a public education component involved where the town will be responsible for sending out notices to the customers that this is what has been going on and this is what is recommended.
Do you know if there'll be options for us to outsource that public notification? And,
Absolutely.
okay.
There's a bunch of companies that are chomping at the bit to get their payday off of this.
And maybe we're not big enough to where we'd want to do that, but
What's that?
I said, Aaron was smiling there, so.
No, it's not the consultant world that he's talking about necessarily, especially about the notifications, but there are a lot of companies out there that are setting themselves up.
Yeah. And for a lot of systems, it's just not feasible for them. They don't have the staff or the capabilities to do something like that, to inventory the entire system and establish a new compliance schedule and
Maybe that's where our
notification and all that.
I'm sorry, maybe that's where our administrative assistant comes in.
So you'll have a requirement to have a publicly available inventory as of 2024, and for your size of system, that can be a notebook that sits in the lobby, that has an address on it and has the type of pipe, and that's gonna say, it could say PVC, it could say galvanized, or it could just say unknown. And now there will be an expectation that you're making strides to identify those unknowns. It could just say non-lead. If you're confident it's non-lead, but you don't know what it is, right? Then that will check the box. You know, a lot of anything that's, the date seems to be relatively flexible in North Carolina, but you know, I think EPA outlawed lead in 86. North Carolina Building Code followed that with the update in 88-ish, around there.
I think it was more like 91.
Okay, it may have been a little bit later. So there's
There's a
little bit of
gap.
a gap, but anything after that, right, you can say, strike it off, right? We know that's not lead, that
Yeah,
was,
you've
if
got-
that home was built after that.
Permit records, construction records that
It-
show that.
To your point, this is gonna be a nightmare for some towns, but it hopefully will be a little more straightforward, for us. But,
On the
So-
public side, for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, on the private side, what can you do other than what you said, send the postcards? I mean, I don't plan on going knocking door to door.
No, you won't
In
have.
fact,
to.
I'm not gonna publicly say I won't be doing that. What kind of pipes you got there, bud? I'm from the government.
And I'm here to help you.
Assistance available for this as we, like I said, as we start to unpack the ins and outs of this rules, especially for small systems under 10,000 in population. There's going to be free assistance from myself. There'll be guidance tools. There'll be funding. It's
What about the
Go ahead.
citizen that reads it in the paper or online or hears these meetings and they know they've got copper pipes in their house because they're older houses? Do you think they'll have to replace their piping and will it be?
replace copper.
Okay.
Copper with lead solder, maybe.
Yeah. Lead solder pre-1986, lead service lines, things like that.
That ought to be fun.
It's-
Some galvanized if there's lead also in the system. It also, you know, it can be fixtures in the home. I mean, older fixtures sometimes contain lead. So there's a lot that the utility is not going to be able to control, right? But it's an education piece, as he said. You know, I mean, people don't want lead in their water system. So, I mean, if there's education available that says, hey, you may have it, here's what you need to check, I think people will do that. Right? And if they don't know, maybe they call you, maybe they call you up and say, can you help? And that'll be, maybe you call Matt. You know?
So I understand this is new, but are any municipalities or utilities already getting a plan together?
Yeah.
So we're having quite a few, and the requirement is the inventory.
Don't
Right.
say that.
The requirement is the inventory. So if you can
Okay.
complete the inventory, now that is a lot
The
more
black and
difficult.
white,
That is
yeah.
a lot more difficult for systems older than yours.
Sure. So, moving on, every 9 years asbestos.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's an easy one. Every
Yeah.
9 years, you sample ideally it's a location that's served by an asbestos line. You guys are always zero. There must be asbestos in Winston or something. Normally you won't have to do that at all, but that one's not a big deal. You've got UCMR 5 coming up, March 2024. Conveniently the same year as the lead and copper thing, but it's not a big deal. You guys registered, right, Robbie? I think,
Robbie, did you
I
take
think
care of
Dale
that,
did
bud?
it. I think Dale did it.
Okay.
You're not on the list of systems who haven't registered, I know.
Okay.
We got that from the EPA a couple days ago, so I'm confident you're registered. But you have to register with the EPA for unregulated contaminant monitoring. You guys were one of the lucky ones that got chosen to do it. It was some sort of lottery system where they chose a certain amount of systems under 3,300 and you won, so. But it's free, they're paying for it, they're just gonna ship, you register on the EPA's website, they ship you some bottles, you fill them up at your, distribution sampling points or at the entry point. The instructions will be on the EPA's.
So Gary's probably on top of that.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Dale had mentioned to me that Gary had offered to help with that, so he'll probably fill the bottles and she'll register and tell him when the bottles are coming, I would imagine.
I do
but-
remember him mentioning that.
Yeah. This round of unregulated contaminant monitoring is looking at PFAS. I don't know if you've heard about any of that in the news, but it's kind of a hot button issue in the water world right now. It's perfluorinated alkaline substances,
Oh,
what
yes.
PFAS is. So it's Gen X. You may have heard of that about that in the news. Greensboro had an issue where their firefighting activities at the airport, the firefighting foam had PFAS in it, but it's used as an industrial manufacturing component
Oh,
for
yes.
Teflon, 3M coatings, firefighting foam.
It's used in textile applications.
Waterproof.
Yeah, anything that's been waterproofed, food wrappers that have a resistant coating on them, cosmetics have it. It's everywhere now, and so the EPA is looking to find out exactly how serious the contamination is, how widespread it is. So they're gonna.
I have heard the targets on this are extremely aggressive.
Yeah, they're incredibly low. I think they were looking at like 4 parts per trillion or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's yeah.
Lower than you can currently test for.
What are they gonna do? I mean, what can be done about it when they find it?
that's what I've asked.
Depending on what the source is, they can install new treatment technologies at the treatment plants. It's gonna cost billions and millions of dollars to upgrade every water plant in the country to reverse osmosis and ion exchange to take this type of thing out. Most plants don't have the technology to remove it right now. But that's what this round of monitoring is for, to see what the level of presence it has in water systems across the country, so they can establish a reasonable MCL to regulate it. The MCL is the maximum contaminant level. That's how they regulate anything, THMs, asbestos. They set an MCL. So they have to do their due diligence, find out what the concentrations are throughout the country, and then they can set that MCL and regulate it.
And utilities are really going out to the private sector, to folks that could.
So the way to remove it is to make sure they come to you, right?
Right, ideally, it's not getting put in the river to begin with, or the lake, or in the well, but that ship has sailed, it's everywhere now, it's everywhere. But it's not as bad as it was, before they stopped, when they were discharging it ad nauseum before we discovered how bad the contamination was. It was like 14,000 parts per trillion in the Cape Fear River.
Is
And it came down to like 50.
Is it inert? Is it organic?
It is,
If it's organic, it's just feeding on itself.
well, they call it a forever chemical. It doesn't break down organically in sediments in the river the way a lot of contaminants will. That's why it's such a booger.
It's there, I mean, they found it in the ice caps, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's in our environment now. It's
Yeah.
not-
But it's not growing.
It's in our blood.
I got a question
Well, what does it
completely.
do to you?
And your body can't
If it's in
process
us, what's it
you
doing?
get rid of it.
I
It's
mean, what's
a
it doing
It's a
to it?
potential carcinogen,
Yeah.
Oh, really? Cause
potentially.
cancer?
But, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't think they've come right out and said it is a carcinogen yet, but I think it's like,
It's a potential.
yeah, I think they're just calling it a potential right now. You know, they've dosed enough lab rats with it to give them cancer, but they haven't done enough long-term studies in humans yet.
Out of curiosity, what happened in Camp Lejeune?
Camp Lejeune was,
Yeah, I'm not gonna tackle it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know enough about it.
I don't know anything about it either. There were a well system that had some sort of contamination in their wells. I don't know what the contaminant was.
But if you were stationed there between this date and this date, you should call somebody.
Yeah, the reason for all that now is Congress allocated money for the resolution of that issue, and so now all the law firms are able to
Yeah.
access that money.
And they are gonna access it all.
Yeah,
probably,
that's
about
very
90% of it. For them.
I can't watch
So,
an Andy
I mean-
Griffith rerun without hearing about it.
Ultimately, you guys aren't gonna have to worry about it because you don't have a water plant. So, that would be on Winston-Salem. Now, those costs of treat water might change.
Yeah.
That are affected by, them having to put in some additional treatment systems because of this.
Yeah.
But I think that's a little bit far down the road and we're still trying to figure that out.
It's a ways out, yeah, but.
So then we have our annual consumer confidence report. That's a document I'm familiar with, so.
Okay, yeah. I've done that
Yeah.
report for you for the last 2 years.
Yes, and thank you.
That's just that's an EPA rule. You have to do that annually or you get a violation. It's just a report that's made available to your customers that has all your results of all those tests above.
Right.
How do we make that available, Derek? Do you know?
I believe we mail it and we put it online.
Oh, okay.
For a system of the distribution methods of it vary based off the size of your system, but you can post a link on the bill that goes out to all your customers and then just have it online.
Okay.
I think that's what we did.
Okay,
That's what you guys did, right?
that was before me.
I think that was-
How long ago was that sent out?
Probably right when you started.
It was March or April.
Okay,
Never mind.
I think I worked with Priscilla
okay.
on that.
So then we have an annual local water supply plan.
Yeah, the local water supply plan, basically just, it's a checkup on the system statistically. It looks at how much water you bought from Winston-Salem, how much water you sold through your meters to your customers. The important takeaway from it is that percent loss or unaccounted for water.
Right.
You guys were really good, like 14, 12%, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but, which is really good. The state likes you to be between 5 and 15%. So you passed the checkup there. It looks at projections. So you look at you guys, this was really interesting with the population growth, seeing what your projected demand would be 50 years from now, versus what your supply is. So the state, once you get close to 80%, the state wants you to have a plan for buying more water from Winston-Salem, renegotiating that contract, establishing another interconnect. You guys, based on current projections, by 2060, you would be well over that 80%. So we've got 40 years, but you will have to be able to buy more water from Winston-Salem 40 years from now.
Yeah, if you look at things on an average, I understand that we're roughly 130,000 gallons a day on average, but in the winter that could be 80,000, and in the summer it could be 200,000, maybe. I I mean, hypotheticals.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the old saying, if you got your head in your freezer and you're sitting on the oven, average, you're okay, but in reality, are you really okay?
Actually, Robbie, can you skip ahead a couple of slides?
Yeah.
Right there. That's a shot from your local water supply plan from 2021. It's got your current population is around 1,500. I bet by now you've already added a couple hundred to that.
What do you mean by population?
Your population served by the water system, and it's
I would say we're 2,100.
yeah, they usually use 2.5 people per connection. So you take your service connections, multiply by 2.5, and you got something around 1,500. I think I got that number directly off your billing though.
I was gonna say, we bill about 700 a month, don't we?
It'll be different than your population in Stokesdale.
Yeah, the population of Stokesdale in general is a lot bigger. But this is just population served by the water system, so connections. And you see the red numbers in the bottom right, that's at 2060, you're at 96% of that contract of 300,000 gallons a day with Winston-Salem. So, and you're close, you're at 74% in 2050. So the state would want you to have a plan in place to either renegotiate that contract, and I'm sure you will have renegotiated it well before then, you know, to buy 500,000 gallons.
So we're not in a dire need to have it renegotiated right now then,
No,
other than
no, you've got 25 years before you need to really start having that conversation, but
won't be having to worry about that, I doubt.
I don't want to discount this data because I know it came from somewhere, but if we counted the number of approved rezonings and houses and subdivisions, we're at 150 here. There's probably another 60 in Treeline. Northwest Meadows will probably have another 40. So, you know, that's at 250. You've got the Forsyth County, that adds another 150 or so between Happy Hill and Coldwater. So that's 400. You know, and then what will be approved? I'm not really excited about it, but I think it's reasonable to believe that the customer base would double by 2022 or 2032. You know, mix in a few commercial properties.
But at some point it'll slow down. Yeah, this kind of increased it by the same percent year after year all the way out to 2070. Whereas more realistically, you'd probably have it jump up a lot more by 2030 and 2040, and then slow down a lot after then.
Right.
And so you probably wouldn't even get into that red realistically. But if growth were to continue and all of the approved construction went through, and then worst case scenario, it could get to that point by 2060.
Right.
We're already seeing construction slow down a little bit, so.
Yeah.
This is our third planning board meeting in a row, isn't it? Didn't they cancel this? I never remember 3 planning board meetings in a row.
There hasn't been one yet.
Yeah,
That's
well,
crazy.
That's good. That means that's minutes we don't have to do.
That's right.
More money in the budget.
That's right, more money in the budget. Jim,
Actually, it's
Stan,
less money in the budget because we don't have that revenue coming in.
That's right.
I
Thing
think
if
one's
you do,
coming.
thing if you don't.
No, I love seeing data like this. It's good, but
Can you email
you know,
it to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
based off this data, we're
Whole
sitting
thing.
fat and happy
Whole
for
thing, yeah.
30 years. 30 years from now. I mean, I want to be looking ahead 30 years, but I don't trust the data enough to not take action, especially while we have, grant money at our disposal, on some kind of redundant line. If we're able to, I mean, we do have grant money, but, $4 million in grant money in relation to water lines is a fly on an elephant's ass, so.
Is
there anything else?
If you wanna go back a slide.
Back a slide, gotcha.
Yeah, so I just put a few bullet points on just some of the routine system maintenance that you would have to do on a system like this, being that you don't do any treatment. Tank maintenance annually. So at a minimum, just an inspection, a visual inspection of the tank, the condition of the structure, the paint, the valves and plumbing associated, the fence, security fence. Your tank's got pressure transducers and altitude valves. All those things need to be inspected annually, and action needs to be taken on any of the findings of that inspection to clean out the control valve lines at a minimum, calibrate pressure transducers, perform any corrective maintenance on the valves itself. Hydrant, same thing, a minimum annual inspection. Just simple common sense stuff. Check them for damage, strip threads, cracks in them, leaks. Check for soil erosion or soil buildup. Then you need to be able to access them. Check pressure and flow. Valve exercising. So you've got isolation valves throughout the system. I believe Aaron said that you guys did previously do an AIA, right, where you've got some
Not-
data?
Not an AIA, just a system analysis that ended up with a,
Is there a file with
Somewhat of a
GPS
CIP.
locations of valves and things like that?
there are.
Yeah, so that's good to have. Keep handy so you know where your valves are. So many systems just don't even know where they are. They've been buried. They've been paved over. They don't know if they work or not, or they do know they don't work anymore. You have a main break. You go to close that valve. If it hasn't been exercised in 10 years, you go to close it and it won't close. And then you got to shut down the valve at Winston-Salem and shut the whole town off to do one main break repair. That's not unheard of. I know towns that they have to do that
I think that's
because
still
their
a
valves
challenge.
do not work. So you need to open and close them at least once a year, all of them. Check the condition of the valve box, make sure it still lines up. You can even get a valve wrench on it. They get run over, they get washed out, and the valve box moves, and you can't get to the operator nut. They get full of mud. You need to vac them out, make sure you can get to them. The lids get so much sediment in them, or pavement,
Gary does?
asphalt gets in them. You can't get the lid off to get to the valve, and then it's the middle of the night. You're trying to isolate the system. You're trying to isolate a break. You need to be able to get to that valve.
Matt, do you know if we're doing this?
I have no idea.
Who's gonna check up on us to make sure we're doing this?
The mayor?
That's what I voted for you
I
for.
knew I had
Yeah.
something to do around here.
Yeah,
You know,
Get started tonight.
town,
It sounds like we,
whoever the boss is, you know, most time you have a town administrator or
no, we don't have
You're
any of
just
that.
talking about a preventive
That sounds
maintenance
like
schedule,
something
really.
I should let
Need a
the,
preventive maintenance schedule.
yep.
that sounds like something I should let the clerk do. What do you think?
I would suggest starting with Gary and Gene.
Okay.
Good call.
And I think, you know, you guys have a really good relationship. Is Gene who works for Yates?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you guys have a really good relationship with him, and
Oh, you
you're
want-
really fortunate to have him.
Yes.
You know, a lot of systems don't have a Gene, and so,
Agreed.
yeah, you guys are, I don't want to say skating by, but you guys are just, you're fortunate that you have him, and I think he's taking care of a lot of that stuff. But if he goes, you need to have all this institutional information compiled somewhere in a maintenance plan, GIS data with all the locations of all of your assets, what they are, how to maintain them, you know, manufacturer's specifications, operation manuals, compile all that in one location.
Can you help
Can
us?
you help us with the frequency?
Yeah, can you help us with a schedule?
Yeah, you will check that.
Yep.
Okay.
That is what
Excellent.
that would.
No. Email it to us all if you would, or,
And what you need to do when you if and when you do approve doing an AIA with an engineering firm, you need to ask for specific deliverables. So make sure that's included in that.
Is AIA, is that something we're gonna ask, is that part of this grant?
It would be, yes.
Okay.
That-
Well,
that-
this is
so that-
timely that you're hearing this.
Absolutely.
Make sure that you ask. Make sure that you ask for these items to be included
Okay.
in that.
That's already part of the scope.
Excellent,
That
excellent.
would be part of this write-up, and you would and have that list. You're gonna have a map that shows you where the valves are in case Gene is down at the beach for the weekend and you got a
Right.
water line.
The
break,
mayor
right?
has to go out.
Say, we need to go here and here, right? You know, part of that is having some spare parts on the shelf somewhere here in town hall, right? For, you know, to repair a pipe and to have a valve operator somewhere that somebody can get their hands on.
Okay.
You know, that
And-
doesn't only live with Gene.
And that you have a maintenance plan in place, so you know when they go to find that valve, they can find it and it works. It's not full of mud. It's been operated. It will close.
So that is a challenge we face every day, and it is, and I mean, it's real. They need to be operated with SCs. End up having to replace them anyway. So that's gonna be difficult for you guys, because you don't have a full-time staff member that can drive around with a valve key and start turning those. There are companies that will do it. And that's what they do. It's a valve turning program.
Is that
And
like
you
an
give them-
EnviroLink? Is that what they do?
I can't say that they do, just because I don't know. There are companies like Wax or Hydromax or others that'll do that. I mean, you'll give them a map, preferably a GIS map, which you'll have after the AIA, of all your valves. And you do have the pipes in GIS. I can't say for sure that the valves are there and are marked accurately. So, I mean, that should be part of the scope.
Okay, so the GIS is a deliverable from the AIA?
The GIS you have, your pipes are in GIS. I'm not sure that your valves are, so that's something that we would need to chase down through your record drawings, you know, from all your, from the original construction all the way down through all the neighborhoods.
Do you need that for the application?
I need to look and see whether it's been done first. But yeah, no, that would be, if it has not been done, it would be one of the challenges that we would note as part of this.
Okay.
Scope.
Well,
I hope that it's been done.
better
I hope
time than
that-
the
I hope
present
that
to
it's
get
been
started.
done, but I need to go look. I know the pipes have been done. I don't know if the valves have been done.
right.
If the valves haven't been done, for crying out loud. It's like a septic tank you don't pay any attention to.
Well, what didn't happen in the past really don't matter. It's,
Well,
you're responsible.
I know.
A valve maintenance
That's why I'm bitching.
program. He's right. Ideally, you turn every valve every year. That is unlikely to happen in nearly any system. I mean, if you,
How many valves are we likely to have?
I don't even know, at 27 miles of pipe, probably, quite a few. I would not want, that would not want to be my Saturday activity.
Would we have one a mile? Would we have one a mile?
I'd be in a
Or
lot better shape.
would we have one a mile or?
Oh, no. No, it wouldn't surprise me if you had, 250 valves or more in the system.
Yeah.
200 valves in the system.
Hey, T, you're retired now.
And so.
You'll go turn some valves for us.
So at that point, you.
I'll provide transportation.
Maybe if you did a quarter of your system or half of your system every year, right? And you did, and then alternated through
Yeah,
there or
I
something like that, that would be a better situation than you have now. And what that would do is it would identify, if you did find a valve that didn't work, right, you could identify that as a maintenance item here, next year in the CIP, or you just know it doesn't work, and then you're going to go to the next one, right? I mean, you mark it off the list, but those are decisions that you could make depending on redundant valves, et cetera.
Okay. Wow.
Gene could help you on a lot of that, pricing that out.
I'll just about bet he's exercised a lot of those valves. Now, I'm not gonna say he's done every one of them, but
Yeah.
I seem to think that it's been brought up before. I'm not saying every one of them's been done, but.
Sure.
I bet he can probably point you to a broken one too.
He probably could. He probably
Be
could.
my guess.
I know a guy we can get one of them little lights on his car to ride around with him.
That is normal. I mean, everything that we're talking about is normal for every water system. You guys wouldn't be unique if you had broken valves in your system or valves that hadn't been turned. It's something we deal with every day, every utility.
Okay. Good.
All right. What else, gentlemen?
Flushing program. So for water quality, you need to flush out dead ends of the system, and just other areas as water quality dictates that your operator or whoever's familiar with the system and, you know, what the chlorine residuals, what the water age is, what kind of numbers they're getting in different parts of the system will dictate where and how often they need to flush. But developing a flushing program is an important part of that. It really helps with the THM issue.
I think Gary's doing that right now. Didn't he tell us that?
It's being done.
I kind of already mentioned the PRVs, altitude valves, transducers, all those mechanical moving parts in your tank vault and at your interconnect. They just need to be inspected and make sure they're working right. The manufacturer's recommendation is annually on almost all of those things. At a minimum, somebody just checks to make sure that it's opening and closing as it should. You know, they inspect them to replace the gaskets and all the moving parts, flush out the lines on them, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, all makes perfect sense, every one of these.
Yeah, and I believe you guys had somebody from Underwood come out and service that PRV recently.
We did.
So,
We did. That happened.
Please, Matt, if you would, help us with that schedule.
okay.
Well, Matt can do it, and I believe the outcome. Help me out, Aaron. We're gonna get one through
So
the grant.
We're gonna give you a list of all your assets. We're gonna do it both digitally and, you know, we can print a report out, which doesn't really do you as much good, but you have a big map of where all your valves are, where all your assets are. I mean, it's a fairly small system. You've got an interconnection, a meter, hopefully a control valve at that location soon, and then you'll have, and you've got your tank, right? Everything else is just gonna be isolation valves and
So we should be able to just put together a checklist.
flushing locations, hydrant locations.
We'll get there.
Yeah, and so the idea would be, we put a list of all those assets together, and then maybe we sit down with Matt and we'll talk about, you know, putting together valve maintenance programs and, you know, things just to continue to maintain your water system to keep in good shape, right? I mean, it's one thing, as part of the AIA, the one thing the state wants to know, and it's part of them giving you the money to do this, right, is that you're not just gonna put this document together and then put it on a shelf and forget about it, right?
Yeah.
That you're gonna put this document together, it's gonna be a living document, you're gonna continue to maintain it. That's the reason they ask for specific people that are going to have their hands on this, and be able to follow it through. So my suggestion is that there can be a few elected officials on that list, and there should be, because you guys are the ones that are gonna be able to make those decisions, but there have to be other people that are more stable, like a Ravi, Priscilla, that are, that can keep. That can
Staff members, of
maintain
course.
it through transitions. Yeah, and even North Carolina Rural Water is probably a great name to put on the list, right?
Okay.
It's not an operator, but just somebody that's there as a resource that's gonna continue to be.
Yeah, what I was alluding to earlier, you know, I don't want to get a study just to pay for a study. I want the study to deliver a tangible delivery, and ideally that grant money can. I realize the grant money can't pay for preventive maintenance, but you know what I'm saying here.
Right. But it can put a flushing program together.
Yeah.
In
Well,
fact, we've kind of already done that through previous work, and we wouldn't repeat work that we've already done, but we gave you some locations that would be ideal for flushing your system to keep water quality at.
Okay. Matt, you got any more for us, bud?
Next slide. Gotcha.
Awesome.
It might be we talked about that. Okay. This is a really useful tool that the UNC School of Government and DWI put together. It's called the rates dashboard. And what this does is it takes your water rate information and looks at all your financial information from your audit and kind of gives you just a checkup on your financial health of the water system. It allows you to compare to other systems based on, I brought up similar number of accounts, so similar size system, but you can compare to every system in the state. You can compare to systems with similar water sources and treatment costs and things like that. So here we have your median water bill is it $58 a month, $57 a month? It shows the min max. You're kind of right in the middle, max being 93 for other similar sized systems. This conservation signal here, just, it's basically, does your water, rate structure encourage conservation? So each 1,000-gallon tier costs you incrementally more money, therefore encouraging you to conserve water. Cost recovery is an important one. So you're at 1.01. So just based off of your financial audit, you're only at a 1.01 recovery percentage of your rates paying for the maintenance and operation of your system.
Barely.
Yeah, the state wants you to be at least 1.2. So you're putting back money for capital improvements, so you can fund your CIP plan, things like that.
So it does include depreciation.
It includes depreciation, yes.
Hell, this is the first year we've been above a 1, if that's the case.
Could be.
So it is.
I've not looked at the dashboard for you in the past, but
After including depreciation.
yeah.
So what would put us at a 1.2, 1.02?
Money.
I mean,
A
how
rate
much?
increase
I
would
mean,
be
I
the
know it'd take
obvious.
money.
So we just had a rate increase, that's
Yeah.
649 is now
Yeah.
670.
Yeah, rating.
Okay.
Where is it capturing our $25, now $25.50
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
monthly?
That's right.
In the first one, first quarter.
Zoom, Robbie, can you zoom back out a little bit?
Absolutely.
How can we access this online today? Robbie, send me this link.
Yeah. Just
You're
just
saying-
Google
I will have
NC
fun
Water
with
Rates dashboard.
Okay.
I don't know the exact URL off the top of my head, but it'll be the first hit on Google.
Who updates the data?
I think
Is
it's
that Priscilla?
they get it all off of your audit. I think.
They bring it from, someone else does it besides us. And T brought up a good point, you know, we've raised the water rate, and this probably doesn't reflect what we just did.
It doesn't, everything's reflective off the, to your point, the
Yeah.
last audit,
Yeah.
especially based off that cost recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should be in good shape.
Maybe.
Here's an interesting
That's
one
right.
here.
Hope so.
It's the median affordability. So it's your water rates comparative to your median household income. And you guys are at 0.82%. So less than 1% of the median household income is going towards the water bill in Stokesdale. Most cities are like 2 or 3%. You guys have a really high median household income. It's like $85,000 a year. So that would indicate that a rate increase wouldn't hurt the wallet of the citizens of Stokesdale. I'm not advocating for a rate increase. I'm just saying that's what the data says.
Yeah, but you got these rich cats like Foy and
That's right.
the mayor here, and then you got the poor folks. That's what's driving it up
Like
to
he's-
85,
like he's
they're making 200.
Mechanics and automobile dealers and stuff like that can't
Yeah.
rub two nickels together.
Water operators.
This is really good data.
Yeah.
That
you can
is.
go- you can go online and get that. You can select, right there, you can select any town, look at their financial information. These other tabs here, the benchmarks, I wish I had pulled it up, but it's information you already know. It's just financial data off the audit.
Robbie, you sending us that whole thing, right?
So that,
Yeah.
the fixed cost,
Absolutely.
$25, that's being captured here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
They
'cause-
just took at 5,000 gallons.
Yeah, your water bill probably doesn't run, well, if I didn't have a swimming pool, it probably wouldn't run but about $30.
Yeah. A lot of people were usually just right around the base rate or the next tier up. But 5,000 gallons is probably your third tier or so, right?
We have one, we don't do tiers.
Oh,
I'm not saying, I'll be very open to that. I've even kicked around the idea in my head. I haven't ever brought it up before. I might just do that.
Yeah.
Some
of this-
That'd be
this-
part of your
this-
rate study as well. Looking
Yeah,
at things like
yeah.
that.
So this
People
most
with a
recent
pool would want
funding
more.
round, the state is asking some towns to, well, the engineering firms that some towns are working with are asking towns to switch their rate structure over to an ascending rate. So every 1,000 is incrementally a higher rate to increase conservation more, and you get more priority points for funding that way.
Is that right? Huh. That's a racket.
Isn't it all?
I don't know. I'm starting to think so. I'm gonna dig a well.
We can calculate,
Call them and complain about it.
we can calculate that.
They're probably the same people where I'm asking for money from.
They are.
They are, that's right.
They are, 100%.
How do you think they get this money?
Carrots out there, you know, no carrot out there, let's go get it.
That's right.
Somebody's going to, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
It's- it's
absolutely.
something to do.
Yep. Is it the school of government?
He's gonna send us an email. probably.
Yeah.
Never fails.
Derek.
Board members always.
Yeah.
love it.
I guess he,
Robbie,
It's a home run.
send us all that link.
Break down the dollars
Send
and
us all that.
see it in the dashboard.
We
Oh,
can
man,
calculate
get any
that lower
better.
left
I
dial.
wish I would have invented it.
Calculate that.
I'll do it. If Charlotte put this together, it may be a little bit closer.
I knew I liked you too. Knew I liked you.
Well, this is good stuff.
Yeah, it is. Anything else, guys?
Yes.
Go.
If Mr. Matt here doesn't have anything else, we're gonna segue into, I think we can be brief, because Aaron's here. But we need to talk, Aaron needs answers for this grant application.
So I need a few just to be able to write this, up. Some of these are going to just go straight into the application as requested, and I think the staff is gonna be able to provide.
And Aaron, I know you're taking the position of a vendor and we're the client here. I would appreciate the vendor, when appropriate, if he feels comfortable, advising the client on certain ones of these.
I got you. Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of these questions, right, I mean, we're gonna be able to take care of, because we'll get the information from staff, the financial information, things like that. A lot of it is gonna be producing the same numbers you just looked at from the dashboard, right?
Okay.
But we've gotta be able to show that math.
Okay.
They wanna see it, printed out and so they can defend it, they can redo it, they can, take exception to it, whatever they decide, right? And as they're reviewing the applications. But one of the biggest pieces, as we go through here, water rates are easy, the percent of utility bills, hopefully we'll be able to get that information. You said 99%, that's gonna be incredible. Age, so we've got some data in the GIS, I think, but I'm not sure. That would be good to understand when the original system was put in. I think that might be on your website. I think 2001 or 2 is ringing a bell.
It's circa then, early 2000s.
But I imagine Mr. Jones may have that date, if he were here, he would tell us. So I need that information, 27.8 miles, I did go look at that in the water model, so we got that number. 0 pump stations, of course. Number of connections is in your local water supply, but we'd like to get the updated numbers from that as of maybe last month for billing. System mapped, yes, and it's in GIS. The issue is that.
Okay, so number of connections means number of customers? Or,
Depends on how you have it coded. A customer could have 2 connections. So they're, if you've got an irrigation connection and a.
Number of meters.
Yeah,
An
number
active
of
water.
meters is a better, and maybe it's a better term. So.
okay,
So what are the challenges of the system over the next 5 years? So, one of those just for example, and this is not one that we have to include, but we need to include 3 specifically is what they're looking for. What are the top 3 challenges, what we try to let them know. One of those might be pressure and flow across the system, right? So there were some fire flow concerns that were part of the CIP at certain portions of the system. There were some recommendations for a few pipe that, might be able to be used for that first million if there was we need to get that done, that you could really improve some of the neighborhoods around here, some of the, and some of your industrial customers and supply that. So maybe that's one. Water quality, water age might be another. I think the tank mixing system and control valve would go into that argument, right,
Okay.
of water quality.
so where's water quality on here?
I don't know, I think we actually break it down a little bit further, but, low pressure might go into that first challenge.
Okay,
Pressure and flow, fire flow specifically.
okay, and then water quality?
and then water quality would be on the second one, and that's where your tank and control valve might fall into.
Okay.
Again, not something, since this is a public meeting, I want to be clear, water quality is not something that we're concerned about with citizens. I
Sure,
drink the
sure.
water, and we do this every day, so, but I mean, there are times of year, where you might have.
Yeah,
exceeds.
the data suggests we're fine, but if there's a way that we can improve water quality by having that mechanism to control the height,
Improving
of
water age, et cetera.
turn the water, hey,
Exactly.
I'm all in.
You're right on it. And then, so I'll ask, council here, what are your other concerns? I mean, that, the other one may be the resiliency of the system, right? A redundant water line would be part of this AIE program. We could take the opportunity to add, looking at Rockingham County supply as part of that, as part of those challenges. I think with a single supply in Stokesdale, that should be a challenge that you would consider in the next,
Okay.
3 years to address. Doesn't mean you have to construct it in the next 3 years, but just, have a plan.
So how would you word that?
So, we're gonna write it up in the report that goes with it, but I think I would word it as, system resiliency.
Fellas, what do y'all think?
As our top concern?
Top three. And
I think-
again, what I want to reiterate here is Aaron and Hazen and Sawyer are preparing a grant application for the town to address our top concerns. And one's for asset infrastructure and the other is for planning. So,
So if we put water resiliency as a one, now it's gonna, if we fix that, the things that go along that are fixed because of that, should we list those things as 2 or 3, or should we look at some other things that wouldn't be associated with our number one? Should we look at like things that's not gonna affect?
So you don't have to worry about ranking them. We're just identifying what they may be. It also doesn't mean that once we get into the study, right, I mean, others may pop up as more important. And DWI would be okay with that, right? They want you to address what's most concerning about your system. And just because we identified these on the grant application doesn't necessarily, I mean,
Sure.
all that means is that you have a need to complete this,
Right.
to get the grant to complete the study. The study may present itself to have other issues that are more important.
okay.
Ultimately, what we'd want to come out of this is a prioritization of projects and a CIP. And by CIP, I mean capital improvement plan. It's something that council would adopt, and then you would look to budget to complete those projects.
Okay. So that council endorses this, I'm gonna make a motion that the town of Stokesdale would, allow Hazen and Sawyer to communicate as our top 3 challenges our system will face in the next 5 years would be water pressure, water quality, and system resiliency. That was a motion, so.
I got you. Tell me, before we get a second on this, tell me, infiltration and inflow, is this leakage into the current system?
So, yeah, let me be clear, and I tried to scrub this document of anything that was referencing sewer systems, and that is
okay.
the one that I missed.
Okay.
Good catch, Mr. Mayor.
That is,
That's what
Make the big
that's what the
bucks.
extra $50 a month's for. There we
Make the
go.
big bucks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the vote of confidence, guys, I really do.
document was developed as a template and it was meant to be customized, but I missed that part.
I'll second Mr. Foy's motion. Any discussion? Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landry?
Aye.
And I am also aye. You got the floor, Mr. Foy.
So the second question, has the utility done any asset management or capital planning work previously? Provide a copy of the previous studies, and of course Aaron has that. Yes, they will include the CIP plan developed by Hazen and why it's needed. And so question number 2 is pretty, you got what you need.
I think we got what we need.
Moving along, question 3. identify by title utilities asset management team that will be assembled to develop the asset inventory and assessment project. Describe any asset management or capital planning experience or training each team member has completed. Oh, good Lord.
Now, is this where you're gonna put the, is this where a council member would be involved?
Yeah, probably the two with the longest tenure remaining on their terms.
I'll second that.
That was not a motion. That was not a motion. No,
It
it
will
was
be.
not a motion.
Well, it can be.
It was not.
We'll take care of that right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move right along.
So, Aaron, there's a lot to go over here. So just advise us on, if you could, please advise us.
What I would suggest here is that we include your finance officer here. We include, just because they're the one that's going to know that the system is operable, it is paying for itself, right? I mean, they're continuing and advising
Right.
council on, what would need to be done in the future. I would suggest including at least one person from your full-time staff here at Town Hall that would, hopefully be here for a long time, Mr. Wagner maybe.
All right.
But,
I'm gonna write Robbie's name down.
It's easy, there's only two of us.
That's job security, son. It's job security right there.
As far as,
Retiring for long, so.
Priscilla would be a good one as well.
and it may be precise.
Well,
Robbie's
Rob-
here, so I was picking on him, but, it's.
I would like for both of them.
Okay,
Is that-
perfect, yeah, I think that's fine. Can you remind me Priscilla's
She's
last name?
Hunsucker.
And what is her?
She is the,
Water Systems Customer Service Manager.
that's right.
Mouthful.
She absolutely should be on it. That is her title. Water System Customer Service Manager.
And that's the common spelling of Hunsucker. Normal spelling.
And then Kim's our finance officer, Robbie's our deputy clerk.
Deputy clerk, okay. All right, now give me the council members.
Make a motion that we appoint Mr. Crawford and Mr. Jones to be the two elected officials.
Hold on, just calm down, all right?
Discussion.
Just calm
I'm
down.
giving a second.
Do we have any discussion? Yeah, I imagine Mr. Jones would like to have some. I know I would.
I'm, for once, I'm kind of glad he's not here for this one. He
Well,
might
you got three
filibuster
if
the
you
thing.
want to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you, that's what costs you when you don't go to the meeting. If you don't go to
Right.
the meeting, you're gonna end up
You
the
get appointed.
secretary.
You get
You're
appointed.
gonna get to be the
Since Mr.
secretary.
Jones isn't here to discuss anything, I don't think it'd be right if you discuss anything, so I think we should just go on and vote.
And if he has any questions, we'll tell him it was a vote of council.
Mr. Rigsby,
Aye.
Mr. Foy,
Aye.
Mr. Landrith.
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
Okay, so our two elected members are Mayor Michael Crawford, Council Member Tim Jones.
So the last two suggestions, I would suggest Gary, for sure, as your ORC. And, if you remind me Gary's last name,
Machunas.
Do you know that
Common
spelling?
maybe email that one too.
Hold on, I can tell you. I just talked to him.
We'll get you all this on
And,
email.
Matchunis.
And, are you under contract with Gates? Is there an on-call type arrangement with them?
I don't think we have
Is there a-
contract with Gates.
You know,
Is it-
council is comfortable with it. I think they would love to see that you've got, somebody that is actively maintaining your system, on this list. It doesn't necessarily need a name beside it, but.
We've got a line item in our budget that says contract operations. It's roughly 110,000. So it's about 17-18% of our annual operating expenses. Can you help us there? Is that good?
So I think what we would call that is exactly that, contract operations, and allow me to explain it.
And you'll have a copy of our current year water enterprise budget, and you'll see that on there.
Does this thing come with a raise?
No, sir.
You're already making big money.
And last suggestion would be North Carolina Rural Water as a resource.
Okay.
And,
Can we put Matt's name?
might be up to Matt.
You can, yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
What's your last name, Matt?
Casto, C-A-S-T-O.
What we do there is we call out North Carolina Rural Water in general, explain that, and
Sure.
suggest Matt Custis is the current representative that
Okay.
is helping town Stokesdale.
This is an esteemed crowd.
That's right.
This is an esteemed list.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
Aaron, anybody else? I mean, I wish we could volunteer up Gene, but, you know, we can't. I mean, if he agreed and, you know, we
How
went
many
or
do you
something.
need?
Well, I'm gonna check all these boxes.
So I would say this definitely covered it. It would be up to council. Sometimes we, as a trusted engineer, if we had an on-call arrangement with our clients that we've been on this list, I would suggest in this case, I mean, I'm happy to be there. I'm happy to put Hazen and Sawyer on that list, but I don't think that it's necessary for you to get the grant. But it's just somebody that's continuing to advise you. And that's the reason I suggested NCRWA, because that is a process, you know that they will be there. If you get mad at me one day and decide you want it to be somebody else.
Well,
No, that's makes good sense.
but
Just a joke.
I'm gonna pull up the budget now, but I think we have engineering consultant as a line item. So, I mean, they'll see that.
And we could talk about it in generalities, similar to the way we do RWA as well, do an engineer consultant. You know, currently Hazen and Sawyer advising, you know, but not lock it in as a person.
Sure.
And you could do, yeah, for me, it could be, you know, or other North Carolina rural water staff.
Right, that's, Aaron, I think Aaron was gonna word it that way, and maybe state that we're currently working with you.
Right.
And like I said, really, all they wanna know is that when this document, when they give you the money and this document is produced, that it doesn't get lost.
Sure.
That there's somebody that's remaining around here that's going to be able to, you know, because, I mean, if the consultant that prepares it walks away, you never talk to them again, and you know, you guys decide to retire, and you know, so they just, and you decide you want to get another Gene, right, or Gene decides to retire, whatever it may be, right, that there's somebody that can carry that torch.
Sure.
That they're not giving money that's just gonna be, you know, lit on fire, essentially.
And going back to this year's budget, you'll see it, expense item 12002 is contract operations, and 12003 is engineering and infrastructure consulting.
Perfect.
Okay, all right, well, good. Question 4, how does the utility currently set rates to generate revenue for appropriate levels of infrastructure, maintenance, operations, and replacement?
In that swag,
So, you know, what we're,
I would say, Aaron, we need help on this, and that's why we want a rate study.
yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why I would be there, but, you know, essentially, they wanna know that your rates are, or will be, that you're willing, essentially, that will be set to a point that will cover your cost for you to be able to maintain the system going forward. So not just buying water from Winston and then selling it to customers, but buying water from Winston plus setting some back for maintenance, setting some back for improvements, and to continue serving
Well, I mean, we,
customers better, right? So, I mean, you know,
we have changed the rate over the last 5 years.
yeah, we do that based on our budget and our projections and our our cost.
Yeah,
Well,
we're not out to rape and pillage, but
since it's just us girls talking here, we did, our rate increase mirrored 3.1%, the same we got from Winston. Now, we did increase the fixed nut from 25 to 25.50, but, you know, we're laymen and we really don't have a lot of acumen when it comes to assessing how much we need to put back. Now, of course, we're putting back 60 to 80 a year, really through SDF fees, capacity impact fees. New development goes away, we don't get that revenue, we don't get that money we're putting back, but it's not going away for right now. So, but we need to do a better job at that problem.
So it's just setting up a sustainable system, right, that can pay for itself and continue to improve those assets as they start to degrade, right? And do that proper maintenance, keep them for as long as they can. Once they go through their life cycle, replace them with new, and just continue on through that process. And that's, rural water will help you with that. It'll be part of this AIA is to set up a rate structure, and assessment, as well. You know, so you'll walk away from this with an idea of what we think your system currently is worth, what those improvements are going to be in the near future, and then in the, you know, and then going forward. And then what that should do to your rates.
As a sidebar, a water enterprise fund needs to support itself. In other words, I guess what I'm saying, it's really frowned upon if tax dollars are used. How does that work? And I know we don't have a tax, but I'm just wondering.
I think it's beyond frowned upon. I think it's illegal.
Oh, well,
Should be. If it's not, it should be.
yeah, and
The LGC gets
I kind
very
of thought
upset.
so, and I wanted to clarify that because it's a big deal that a water enterprise needs to pay for itself without any taxpayer money. It needs,
All this stuff goes on, ought to be illegal, but
yeah.
When they do your audit, they look at transfers in and out, and if there is, it throws up a big red flag.
And that'll
So
be part of
the
one of the
yeah.
documents you
The
sign.
rates have to pay for all the system maintenance, all the line items on the CIP, the depreciation, the operation, all of it.
We're not attorneys, I don't like to give that, that's why it's great that he's here.
Yeah, so, but that's my general understanding is that, you know, this water system, revenue must pay for expenses and putting some money away for.
For future expenses. Yeah. And breaks.
I mean, it should.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Why would you want to tax citizens not on the water system to pay for it?
I hope that was a hypothetical.
You know, which, I mean, basically we are in a way, because this money we're getting is coming from tax money, so.
Are you saying we need to create a tax, Jimmy?
No, absolutely not. That's what I'm scared of you down on that end.
I heard you say tax 3 or 4 times. I just want to clarify.
Yeah. Yeah, you ain't gotta worry about that down here.
all right. Fifth question?
Do you have what you need on question 4, Aaron?
I do.
Okay. How will the utility use the information developed through this project to develop further infrastructure projects, and how will these projects be prioritized? How will these projects be incorporated into the CIP planning process in the future, and how will the source of the funding be determined?
That will be a result of that will be a result of this study. And essentially, that's what the answer to this question will be, is that you hope, you don't have that now, and you hope to get that, right? And that you expect to get that, not hope.
Have you filled out other grant applications where you've given an answer similar to that?
Yeah, I'm looking at one now. So it'll speak to your challenges a bit, right? So we'll use the hydraulic model to look at any of your water quality issues. We'll continue to use the water model to prioritize the CIP to help with the pressure and flow issues. And then ultimately we'll look at the resiliency answer of a secondary source. And we'll look at Rockingham County. So the one from Hall River has been looked at, right?
Yeah.
And it's been looked at twice, actually, at this point. Once for you guys and once for Winston. Very similar result. It was updated based on their current demands, and that had gone up since the time, but very similar result. So really, it's just adding Rockingham to that piece of the puzzle.
Okay, fantastic. So you've got all your answers 1 through 5. The last one is how will the utilities asset inventory developed through the project be kept up to date, and how will the utility pay for the ongoing effort?
That's gonna fall to Pris, is it not?
No,
Why not? I mean, she's not gonna have to physically do anything.
no,
She's just gonna keep up with it.
y- 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 maybe, but can you give us a better answer than that?
Yeah, so they're gonna wanna see that council and staff, and the staff responsible for maintaining the system, blowing the whistle, and then being able to vote on it are set up with policies and procedures in place that allow you to do that and that you're willing to do it. So, what would be great is that if you walked away from here, potentially, giving staff the ability to monitor the progress through projects, to report back to you, as those are getting done, to, suggest, or that somebody on council takes that lead, right? And is willing to say, okay, here's our schedule, we were supposed to be done with this project at 2025, it's 2024, we haven't started it yet, or, we haven't started the design, we don't have a contractor on board, is that a problem, right? And somebody to just continuously reassess, because, just because we give you a product in 2023, essentially is when this deliverable would be, right? Doesn't make it good for 2026, right? So somebody has to be there to continue looking at it and saying either we're not hitting the population projections that we expected, or, oh my God, we've doubled the populations projections we expected. And so those projects that will be developed out of this AIA to address those with maybe population triggers or demand triggers would be able to be moved, right? And so it's not a static document. Just because our document might say you need to get it done in 2025, well, if population slows down, the economy drops, right, and nobody's moving Stokesdale anymore, then maybe it can be done in 2030, right? And then use of funds. Most likely what we've seen is that it's actually went the other direction for most utilities.
And you can make the answer sound like that. But I do want to voice a concern. I mean, say the outcome of these studies is going to mean the result of like $10 million in expenditures. Is somebody going to be saying, okay, we did this study for you, now you better be spending $10 million by 2026, because we ain't got the money.
Right, so it is going to be, so you might have a system with, you might have a study, you already have a study that ended up saying that, maybe you got 10 different places in the system. I'm just using, don't quote me on 10, but you've got many different locations that have flow and pressure issues. The reality of it is that you need to step back and say, okay, we may have a flow and pressure issue there. We only have 3 houses on it. Is there a different way to look at this, right? Is there a different way to fix this? Or we know a development is coming in this area, and we really should get out in front of this now before that development gets there. And so that's going to be part of the prioritization piece that we will hope to work with council on, or members, representatives from council, to understand timelines on those, right? And be able to better prioritize the CIP than potentially the document that you received a couple of years ago.
And do you need to
That-
do
that
that
said,
between now and the end of September?
No, that would be part of the project.
Okay.
That would be part of the project. So the way we would write that up is this project would create the opportunity for prioritization, would create the opportunity to develop a process to be able to reassess the prioritization. In other words, in the example I just used where, all right, we've already identified an area that's got flow and pressure issues, and now we know that a development is coming in that location, but it's 4th on the list. Well, all of a sudden that might jump up to 1st, right? And that allows council to make that process that has been developed, and the understanding that you would get by that process would then allow you to be able to be dynamic in that decision-making system. Now, we can get as sophisticated as creating, spreadsheets and dashboards that would allow you to reprioritize and put different numbers in there that spit out a bigger, but at the end of the day, at this, with this system, and understanding that I don't think the problems that present to you are gonna be that dynamic. I think, just understanding what gets put together and delivered to you in a written document is gonna be of much more value to you, than spending a ton of money to put together a dynamic CIP tool, for example. So those exist, but I don't think it would be appropriate for the system.
Is this thing not asking for specific individuals? So that's this last question, they're not,
You talking about
So-
how are the utilities asset inventory developed through this project be kept up?
yeah,
So it can,
but it's not,
They're not asking who, they're asking,
not-
they're asking
okay.
procedural process.
what
That's
is the
fine.
process? So an answer to that question that we put together, is you might hire a GIS analyst to continue to update the GIS yourself. That actually may just be Robbie goes to class and understands, how to start using GIS, and you buy a license for an ArcGIS program, and Robbie updates that as.
And when you say
different
hire
deliverables.
somebody, I'll ask a similar question to what I asked earlier. Can we contract that out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's, and again, that's not a decision you have to make today. That
Okay.
could- But, what would go in there is that we're gonna develop that process and make those decisions as part of this study. So that when you walk away from here, you've got a plan.
anything else?
Everybody's got a plan till they get punched in.
You make a plan, you execute the plan. right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't have anything else. That's 2 hours.
We did good. Any council discussion? Jim?
No.
I think just a comment I've had, this is a lot to absorb, and, we spent a lot of time in the last month or so, and we'll spend a lot of time looking ahead. The town, the system has grown organically, really, in the last, 20 years through developers. And, so, we've grown this great system, and, but it's ours now. It's the 27 miles of our system, and that's a lot to process. I don't know. That's just
Part of the plan, and maybe one of the biggest challenges that we're all missing that's right in front of us is, when is the time that you would hire somebody that this becomes their full-time job is maintaining the water system, right? You hire that gear. Right, that's not today, right? What is that trigger, and what would be that? When do you need to get that into the budget, right? And it would be part of that enterprise fee, and be part of that rate structure, right? So, those are all things that we can talk about. Certainly don't need to be decided today, but something maybe you guys can be thinking.
sure.
The one thing about question 4 that I didn't ask you, and we don't have to talk about it today, but I would ask that staff maybe provide it in the response to this email. How has the rate setting process changed? Because I know you've made some changes. How did you make those decisions? Just trying to capture maybe some of those meeting minutes, if you could summarize them.
Yeah.
Derek summarized it earlier.
Well, there's a process to our best ability. In the past, there was the most willy-nilly change I've ever seen in my life, bringing the rate from $30.50 down to $25. It wasn't really based off science. It was like, we're getting a water reduction rate from Winston-Salem, yippee. Let's give it back to the citizens at $5.50 a month. But there was no, this should equal, there was no thought behind it. That I wasn't on council, so I couldn't have pitched a bitch at the time, but my goodness. I don't want that in the study, but my point is, we lack process. Even what we did last time, if we're just passing on the rate of inflation without putting a few points in our pocket too, maybe that's not the best way. I don't know the best way. I mean, you got 5 laymen making the decision without,
I think it goes to what you said earlier. We've got to come up with a long-term process or policy or plan that when the next council comes up and there's a rate reduction, they can look in the plan and say, if we have a rate reduction, then this is what we do versus let's just give it back or let's do this. I mean, and we need a long-term kind of roadmap on how to make these decisions.
yeah, absolutely.
We need to shoot for that 1.2% that Matt showed us earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we need to be.
Right, right. What would get us there? You know, and there's gonna be a art/science to educating our water users. You know, the rate study's gonna educate us more, but, you know. I don't know if I answered your question. I think I just complained.
No, no. I think you did.
I mean, all intentions, my opinion about them, it doesn't matter. All decisions were made with good intentions, right? You know, so, but.
I think what I hear from that and how it's written up is, and I think what you're saying is that you need a proper rate study that can back a rate change with metrics, right?
Bottom line is we've got to stay ahead of Winston-Salem's increase. That's the bottom
Well-
line.
Or the maintenance of your system.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's really the.
With maintenance of the system, yeah. You're
That's
right.
where the CIP comes into place. You have a cost associated with all those improvements. You break them down and you fund them over the years with the rate increases.
So guys, I know we're unique in the way that you know, we don't have public works and all that, but reassure me that some of these struggles that you're hearing us talking about, I mean, are we just unique? How far behind are we in other systems? I mean, we know we've got a lot of opportunity for improvement, but,
You're not behind.
We're not in bad shape.
You're not behind.
no, not financially, but in terms of processes. And,
We need to get on the ball about a few things, but we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, Derek, yeah, you're good.
Yeah. I mean, you're fortunate that the system isn't all that old and you don't have a ton of infrastructure that could be falling apart at this point. I mean,
well, good. Well, that's reassuring.
you look, the average lifespan on most, water plants, wastewater plants, pump stations, all these components is like 30 years if you do nothing. And so you'd be hitting that now,
Gotcha.
having done nothing, and it would be crumbling and falling apart. And that's the crisis that we're having with America's infrastructure right now, is that no capital improvement plans have been in place, no preventive maintenance has been done. It's been this model of get grant money from the federal government, build it, run it into the ground, get more grant money, build it again. And the funding mechanisms of the federal government are going away from that model. They want these plans in place to maintain what you have and extend the life of it. You're fortunate in that you don't have a water plant that could have been run into the ground in this last 30 years. You've got pipe in the ground, you've got meters that need to be replaced, things like that. The tank is in pretty good shape, I'm
Yeah.
fairly confident of. Your control valves have been serviced, so you're not falling apart like a lot of systems are.
Yeah. And, I mean, sometimes I can be my own worst critic when I start thinking. I guess my problem's I think too much.
Jimmy, do you have any comment?
Well, I'd just like to ask a question to Matt and Aaron. If you were going to do something the next 6 months to a year, a couple things to improve the water system, what would you do? Matt, I'll ask you first and then Aaron.
It depends on how much money you're trying to spend, but the control, I think a control valve at the existing interconnect would be very useful.
All right, you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That'd be the first project I'd do.
What about, anything else?
I'd do
and
it
get
without
in-
the mixing system first.
Let me ask you a question, Aaron. If we pursue this, and I'd say there's a good chance we'll pursue it before that potential grant comes in, could the grant act as a reimbursement for that?
different grants that could potentially do that. I would,
I mean,
maybe.
I guess if we've gone this
Maybe.
far, we can wait another 6 months.
Maybe. I can't, not this grant, not the AIA, you're not talking about that.
Well, I kinda am.
I don't think these could be. In fact, I'm 98% sure they can't be, because you can't start working on these till you submitted this application.
So another struggle we have, what I'm getting at is we have to encumber $1.1 million by June 30th.
That can be used as reimbursement if you already had like a project started, for example. Since you already had the money, it's not really gonna apply. But, so we're also applying for the construction grant as well, right? And so that can be used for the design of the control valve. Putting that together, putting the bid documents together, getting those to the right people.
What about the tank, the, oh Lord,
Agitator?
agitator, stir, or whatever you wanna call it, agitator,
Go ahead and say it.
Yeah, aerator.
aerator. What was the, we talked about this and it slipped my mind, but what is the, there's one now that you said it was newer, one actually stirred it, and there's another that.
Oh, yeah, there's mixers, and then there's diffusers.
Diffuser.
Which is a system of nozzles, sprayer nozzles at the top of the tank.
Is
that,
is that better now? That's the newer one, right?
I don't know about newer, I know that a lot of the systems that I talk to prefer that diffuser system. Madison, for example, has the diffusers, and they said they get better results out of those generally. Every system is different. It depends on what your treatment goals are, what your water quality issue is you're trying to address. But just, from a few of the systems that I've talked to that have the diffusers compared to the mixers, they like the diffusers better.
You think that's something we need?
I think
Okay,
given that you have high THMs in August, I think a diffuser would help. Aaron?
So aerating that tank would help, right? So you'd be able to actually remove some of those THMs, release them to the atmosphere. The problem is the tank.
It needs to turn over
At
first.
least by the model, you don't have enough demand in the system to suggest that the tank really ever turns over, except for certain times of year where actual use in the town is higher than what you're pulling in from the supply necessarily. So, in that case, the tank would then operate, right? It would drop and provide water to the town, and then it would refill as demand.
It's using the valve system you're talking about.
The control valve may
valve.
eliminate the need for the diffusers.
Right, and so the control valve would create that condition, right? Because it would stop flow from Winston-Salem, allow the tank to supply the town, and then it would open up and refill the tank.
So, okay, so we wouldn't necessarily need both. If we did the control valve, that may,
I won't go as far as saying absolutely not.
but you would do that first to see.
I would suggest doing the control valve first, see if it would solve your problems and your THM issues in your tank, when you have them. You haven't had them this year, but when you
Right.
have them, except for the one exceedance.
Yeah. Last quarter they were.
And see if that solves the problem prior to spending the money on the
Okay.
aeration tank. Now,
The
I
concern,
don't think mixing or putting an aeration system, I'm sorry, Mr. Raisik, is ever a bad idea, right? I mean, but I think it's something that maybe you could delay.
so my concern about delaying it, I just had to ask, would be if we had to wait to see how long, if the problem re-exists, would we be on the outside of our grant cycle? Is it kind of we're running a risk of sitting and waiting, and then we're outside the cycle to use the money?
That is absolutely a factor that should be considered in this decision.
It wouldn't hurt to do both. We
It's not
discussed
gonna
that
hurt you,
in the meeting.
it is not gonna hurt you to do both.
Okay.
But what I will advise is don't do the aerator or the diffuser without doing the control valve.
Right. So if we was gonna do one, if we was gonna do both, go ahead and do the control valve.
You gotta pick.
Is that it? Okay.
And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter where that secondary resilient connection comes in, you want a control valve on that one too.
Right, okay.
To prevent, until the demand in the town gets high enough that it's gonna turn over naturally. The tank will cycle naturally.
Do you have any idea what a cost on something like that would be on a control valve?
Not sitting here,
Just off the
not sitting here today.
$100?
I don't wanna tell you, I don't even wanna tell you within
Million.
$50,000. I don't wanna be wrong.
Who would, who put something like that in?
What do you think?
Yates could put it in.
About the control valve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just the swag. We're looking for a swag.
Scientific wild ass guess.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I agree, the control valve would go in first, and then see what your THMs look like in the tank.
But just, have you worked with another town roughly our size that put one of those in, and would you by chance know a rough guesstimate of how much they paid?
Oh, nope.
We put together an estimate 2 years ago for whatever that might be worth at this point in time.
Yes, we'll take it. We'll
Yeah.
add 25% to it, and then we'll.
It's more than 25%. Sorry. Oh, goodness. It'll take me a minute to find it, so we can continue talking.
Is it part of the CIP plan?
It's part of the CIP.
Yeah, okay.
Aaron, out of curiosity, what's your current, dollars per foot of water line estimate that you guys use? I know your fancy figure. It used to be 100, and I saw an estimate about a month ago, and it's gone up to 200 now. That was just one estimate.
Ouch.
Any insight there?
I try to be real careful with how many, any dollar per inch per foot type of,
Yeah.
it is very dependent on how big the project is, right,
Right.
overall, right, and any kind of economies of scale. Obviously depending on the economy at this point in time, but we've, I'd say we've increased that rule of thumb by 30 to 50% over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a lot of factors there.
I don't have any real comment other than I just been schooled. I've been
Absolutely.
learned a lot. And guys, thank you. Thank you very, very much. We do greatly appreciate it. And Aaron, we look forward to your help with this study. And Matt, anything you can do to help us in keeping us out of trouble. I guess that's really what we're after. I want to thank both of you for coming, really.
Absolutely, guys. We appreciate
Yes.
it.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Yes, sir.
Jim?
Aye.
Mr. Foy?
Aye.
Mr. Landry?
Aye.
And I am I. Thanks to everyone.
So what exactly will the, control valve do?
It'll modulate the flow coming into town based on the demand, rather than just filling up the tank based on tank level.
I got you.
So it'll
And that's what